Hey folks, welcome back. Hope you're doing well out there. So in today's video, I wanted to just kind of rattle off a few of the most common, almost universal issues that I see as a coach and as a hypnotherapist. So the reason I want to share this with you is that you are self-aware of perhaps some of the places where perhaps you have a blind spot, where you have an expectation that may be out of alignment with what the process of healing actually looks like. So this way I can kind of help you to perhaps adjust your expectations accordingly, or be self-aware of this and know that this may be a thing getting in your way of healing. So without further ado, let me just share a few of the most common issues that I see clients come in with. And again, these are almost universally, almost everybody has these, right? So the first one would be self-judgment or self-criticism or shame about having an issue or problem in the first place. So, if you do this work long enough, you will see this over and over and over and over. People struggles with our own inner critic, with our own self-judgment, with our own being difficult or hard on ourselves, or really shaming ourselves, this kind of thing. It's super, super, super common, to the point of almost being universal. And after a while of seeing this, I started to get curious about that and started to explore that, having gone through that myself and being familiar with what that experience is like. And it actually created a bit of an opening and a huge epiphany and a huge aha moment for me, which kind of opened up a whole understanding of how to work with ourselves and do self-healing work that I'll be talking about more on this channel in the coming months here. And if you saw my recent video about the kind of input self-output model, this kind of starts to get at it. It started to awaken this understanding in me that there's actually a huge amount of leverage we have by looking at our self-relationship, and not only self-judgment, but also self-validation, self-approval. How do we relate to ourselves, and how does that factor in to our experience of well-being and mental health and happiness and regulation and all those wonderful things? So there's a huge opportunity here, but generally speaking, most people come to me and they are self-judgmental, self-critical, and blind to that. They think they've normalized this, they've rationalized this, that that's okay or healthy or right, because let's be honest, it's pretty universal as a pattern and therefore socially acceptable and kind of okay to be hard on yourself, to be overly self-critical, to be overly self-judgmental. The problem with this is, we're re-wounding ourselves when we reenact self-judgment, but also B, here's the thing, different people respond to, let's say, trauma or stress or overwhelm or adverse experiences in different ways, right? So typically the reason we see that people are self-judgmental is that there's an underlying assumption that if I'm hard on myself, it will motivate me to do better, be better, et cetera, right? This is the common kind of belief. And I would say for a certain kind of person that's wired up a certain kind of way, sure, negative reinforcement and challenge can actually motivate another level of performance. I would still say that's probably not healthy, but some people are wired up that way. But what I find more often is that people aren't wired up that way. And we have this kind of broad scale kind of collective assumption that this is the way to get yourself to perform, right? And what I find actually happens is a lot of times when people self-criticize, self-judge, they're hard on themselves, it causes them to contract more and shrink and freeze and slow down and put on the brakes, or feel demoralized or demotivated. And of course, how are you going to heal, grow, level up, transform your life, become, a better iteration of yourself from that place? It's really hard to grow and transform and heal if you feel like closing up and shrinking or slamming on the brakes in your life, right? So this is something to really look at and really consider, and not make normal and not rationalize and justify, but instead become self-aware of and consider that there may be a better way of relating to yourself, and that when you relate to yourself in a better way, that can have a profoundly transformative experience on, I would say, your entire life, honestly. So this is the first one that I commonly see. Second one is a massive misunderstanding. I want to say, I was going to say misplaced understanding, but a massive misunderstanding about the healing process and what it looks like and what it feels like, especially in the context of psychedelics and psychedelic therapy. But I think, trauma therapy, deep healing, transformational kind of work in general, people have this kind of massive misplaced expectation that either they are seeking or they're running away from. And I think this misunderstanding can really kind of mess you up either way. And that's this misunderstanding that healing needs to be intense, and that, it needs to be fast, and that you need to zoom through the whole process and get it all done, and then you'll be healed, and then you can go on with your life as normal, right? I see this all the time around medicine work, where people really think, okay, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to do this really intense like trauma therapy experience, and I'm going to just like have this huge catharsis and, let go of all the stuff, and then I'll be done, I'll be better, I'll be fixed, and I can move on with my life. Now, what I've noticed is not only is that not accurate to often how healing goes down for people, that's kind of ill-advised in the context of certain therapy modalities that work with trauma explicitly, like somatic experiencing, for example, where they talk about titrating out little portions and doses of therapeutic interventions at the rate and at the amount that a client's nervous system can tolerate, or where they talk about things like, pendulating between doing the work and then taking pressure off, and then doing the work, then taking pressure off, these kinds of things. So the real way that healing is done is at a measured rate that you can handle. It's not about all at once. It's not about the fire hose of drinking from the fire hose of change and, blasting yourself away. It's about measured doses of healing that feel right to your system, right? So this is another major one. And I think a lot of it is that we're terrified of what we're going to find. We're terrified of, how long it might take. We don't want to be disappointed or feel stuck any longer. And what I find is once I start to help people get a feel for their rate of growth, their rate of change, what feels right, what feels safe, and we start just making progress, most people's attitude pivots to, this is the right pace for me. This feels way better. I actually really like that we're going a little bit slower and safer. And I like, that I'm making progress, and that feels good enough to me that I can relax around this need to speed through it and get it all done. So this is another huge, massive, massive misunderstanding. The third one that I want to share with you here today is specific to psychedelic therapy and using psychedelics to heal. And this is different flavors of magical thinking that the medicine is going to do all the work for you and magically heal you, which is just, another variation of the kind of silver bullet, consume your way to feeling perfect kind of mindset, that is kind of implicit in our consumer culture and our consumerist way of living life here. That if we consume things to feel better, that will fix all our problems. And this is just really not accurate of psychedelic work in my experience. Instead, I think the right way to think about it is that there's going to be a complex interaction between you, your conscious mind, let's say, and your deeper system that is holding the things that need healing, between, let's say if I was supporting you, a guide or coach, and your conscious mind and your deeper self and the medicine. And there's kind of a complex dance happening between all of these different layers of support to heal you at the rate that your system, again, is capable of opening up and healing and resolving and moving through things, right? And the medicine is really there, let's say, to facilitate an easier time of information moving through you, of accessing insights, of trying on new ways of feeling, of having, kind of moments of like unconscious wisdom bubbling up and having these breakthrough moments. But a lot of that isn't just the medicine. It's also about how you're paying attention to yourself. It's also about how whoever's supporting you around that medicine work, whether it's a sitter or a guide or a coach or a therapist or what have you, how they're also holding space with you and facilitating that and working with that. And, all of that together is what creates the healing effect. It's these multiple layers of being resourced and connected and having the right therapeutic techniques in place and putting that all together in just the right way, really like being nuanced about that really invites this optimal healing experience. It's not simply about, I'm going to consume, psilocybin or MDMA and I'm going to have this aha moment and I'm suddenly going to feel better and my life's going to be fixed. What I see when I see that kind of thing, because you will see a bit of that on social media, what I see in that is people who are very new to psychedelics and are kind of confusing insight for healing and breakthrough and transformation, right? In other words, they've had these sudden aha moments and they feel a little better because of that. And I remember that from my early years in psychedelics. And they're like, I'm so much better now. But that doesn't necessarily translate to changes in how you perceive yourself, how you perceive the world around you, your emotional patterns, your kind of baseline, your emotional baseline set point. And if that's shifted or changed, that doesn't necessarily translate into new behaviors, new actions in your life, which is really, let's be honest, where the rubber meets the road and where real change happens, right? So, this is, again, another major misconception is this idea that it's just the medicine that will heal you. And I would say, by extension, for anyone who's not doing medicine work and who follows this channel because you just like some of the other aspects of what I talk about, I'd say this is also true. And, this is worthy of another video, which I'll be doing at some point here. When it comes to the role of, let's say, the therapist, or in my case, the hypnotherapist or the guide or the coach, in your life, when you're working with someone to do healing work on yourself, it's the same thing. You don't want to externalize all your power and all your capacity to heal onto them or their modality or their way of doing it and be like, okay, they are going to fix me. I'm just going to passively show up to these, sessions and they're going to sort me out. No, it's very much a complex dance. And it's very much really, if I'm being honest here, the most profound healing often happens by people healing themselves. It's just, my role when I'm working with someone is usually much more facilitating them connecting to themselves in a way where something becomes clear or where something moves or something shifts or gets processed, right? So I do a lot of support. I do a lot of attunement or helping people become self-aware of certain patterns, reflecting pieces back to them, this kind of a thing. And so really, in a very real way, and I know this sounds a little cliche and a little cheesy, it's actually you healing yourself. And a good therapist or a good hypnotherapist or anybody in a role like that, their job is really to listen and to pay attention and to work with your system and support you in getting access to your own capacity to heal yourself. I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, let's be honest, but the more I explore this territory, the more I play with, the work that I'm doing, including psychedelics and non-psychedelic work, the more I see this is really true. There's an idea in the psychedelic therapy world of what we might call an inner healing intelligence that I'd been exposed to. And if I'm going to be frank here with you guys, I thought was a little questionable and sounded a bit grandiose, a bit woo-woo. But the more I do this work and the more closely I understand what's happening, the more clearly I really get there is a deep, profound inner healing, aligning, self-correcting mechanism in the human nervous system that exists in all of us. And it's really our job to kind of, get ourselves out of the way and align with that and work with that. And then that's where the real profound magic happens. So I'm going to wrap this video rather than keep yammering on it, you guys. Thank you for watching. And I'd be curious to know what you think. Leave me a comment down below. Does this resonate? Does this clarify something for you? Do you disagree? Did this upset you for some reason? Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, please do consider doing all the things, the like, the subscribe, the comment, the letting the algorithm know I'm here essentially. So, okay, enough said. More videos on the way soon, and much love to you all. I hope you're doing well out there. Take care.